So we need to now send the password reset token via email to the user. And so in this lecture, we're going to learn how to send email using a very popular solution called NodeMailer. But before we do that, I actually wanted to show you the effect of not having this option here, because I actually never showed you before. So let's cut it here, try it now again. And so now you see all these errors coming up, like please confirm your password. And actually there should be more, but well, this is now the first one that you get. Basically because we don't have any value on the password confirm field. Okay, and so again, that's because of the validation. And so again, we can of course easily turn it off with this option. But anyway, let's now create an email handler function that we can then use throughout our application. So I'm going to do that right here in the utilities folder again, and simply calling it email.js. All right. And before we do anything else, let's actually install the NodeMailer package. So that's the package that I mentioned right in the beginning, which we're going to use to send emails using Node.js. So, as always, npm install NodeMailer. And in here, all right. And now let's create that function here. So const send email. Okay, and then in here, we're going to pass in some options, basically. So the email address where we want to send an email to, the subject line, the email content, and maybe some other stuff. All right. And so now we need to follow 3 steps in order to send emails with NodeMailer. So first up, we need to create a transporter. Then second, we need to define the email options, basically. And then in the end, actually send the email with NodeMailer. Okay? So the transporter that we need in the first step here is basically a service that will actually send the email, because it's not Node.js that will actually send the email itself. It's just a service that we define in here, something like Gmail, for example. Now, Gmail is not actually the service that we're going to use, but let me just quickly show you how it works with Gmail, because I know that many people will be interested in this. Okay? So, anyway, we need to always create a transporter, and that's always the same no matter what service we're going to use. So the transporter will be NodeMailer.create transport. And then, of course, we need some options in there. All right. So we can specify the service, and we can say that we want to use Gmail. So just like this. And there are a couple of well-known services that NodeMailer knows how to deal with, and so we don't have to configure these manually. And so Gmail is just one of them. But also there's Yahoo or Hotmail or many others. Okay? So that's the service. And then we also need to specify the auth property. So basically for authentication. So we need a user and a password. And so just like before, we save that kind of stuff in our config.env file. All right. So email, let's say username. And now I'm not going to use a real Gmail address here because, again, we're not using Gmail, but just as an example here. All right. Your password. All right. So here we then say process.env.email username the password process.env.email password. And I hope I spelled these correctly. Okay, and so this is the configuration for the transport in NodeMailer. Then in your Gmail account, you will actually have to activate something called the Less Secure App option. So let me write that down here. And again, I'm not going to do it here, but I know that many people will actually want to use it. And the reason why we're not using Gmail in this application is because Gmail is not at all a good idea for a production app. And so that's basically what we're trying to build here, okay? So using Gmail for this kind of stuff, you can only send 500 emails per day, and also you will probably very quickly be marked as a spammer, and from there it will only go downhill. All right. So unless it's like a private app and you just send emails to yourself or like 10 friends, well, then you should use another service. And some well-known ones are SendGrid and Mailgun. And actually we will use SendGrid a bit later in this course. Now what we're going to do right now is to use a special development service which basically fakes to send emails to real addresses. But in reality, these emails end up trapped in a development inbox so that we can then take a look at how they will look later in production. All right. So that service is called Mailtrap. And so let's now sign up for that. So mailtrap.io. All right. So, and as they say, safe email testing for staging and development. So basically, with this service, you can fake to send emails to clients, but these emails will then never reach these clients and instead be trapped in your mail trap, okay? And so that way you cannot accidentally send some development emails to all of your clients or users, okay? So go ahead and sign up now. I, of course, already have my account, and so I will simply log in now. So see you in a second after you have created your free account. All right. So after creating your account, it will probably look a little bit like this. Now you won't have any inbox for now, and so let's just create a new one with the name of Naders. So I already have one, but just create a new one here with the Naders name and then hit create inbox. All right, then we can open it and you see we have no email at this point, but what matters for now is these credentials here. So you see we have our host here, we have the port, username and password. And so that's what we're going to specify in our transport in NodeMailer now. All right. So let's start with the host, or actually with the username. So these two I just need to copy. So let's copy it to our config file. So that's the username. Then that's the password. And now we actually also need to specify the host. Okay, and so that's because Mailtrap is not one of these predefined services that comes with NodeMailer. All right, and the port is 25. So give it a save. And then in here, let's get rid of this. And what I need to specify instead is the host. So email host, and of course the port. So everything that we just saved before. All right, then the authentication here is the exact same. Let's get rid of this as well. And move on to step number 2. So basically defining some options for our email. All right, and we could of course do step 2 and 3 all at the same, but I like to simply prefer these options here first. Okay, and so here we specify where the email is coming from. So the name, and then the email address like this. Next up, we need the recipient's address. And so that one I'm going to specify as an option. Okay, so basically coming as an argument to this function. So this options object here is this one that we pass into the function. All right. Then actually the same for the subject and for the text. Let's just duplicate these here. So the subject, and then we need to specify the text property, and that one in the options, I'm just calling it message. All right. So this one is basically the text version of the email, but we can then also specify the HTML property. Okay, and so we could now then convert this message to HTML. And later we're going to do that, but for now let's keep it simple and not specify the HTML here at all. Okay, so simply leaving it at text. Okay, and then finally at the end, transporter. So that's a transporter object that we created right here in the beginning. And on that we can then call send mail. And into that, we need to pass in our mail object. Okay, and now this actually returns a promise. Okay, so again, this is an asynchronous function. And since we don't want to directly work with promises, let's use async await. All right, so declaring this as an async function, and there we go. All right, we don't want to store any result here, which we could, but I'm not really interested in that. Okay, and now let's simply export it as the default from this module. Okay, looks good. Let's now go ahead and actually try this. And so to start, we need to import it here, of course. So let's just duplicate this here. So this is email, and the function is called send email, I think. Okay, so let's go back to our middleware function here. And let's start by defining the reset URL. So ideally, the user would then click on this email and would then be able to do the request from there. And that's going to work later when we implement our dynamic website. But still, we now want to create this URL here so that the user can simply copy it to make it easier to do this request. Okay, so basically we need to recreate this URL structure that we have here. So this one is for forgot password, and let's actually save it here. So forgot password, and now the URL that we're creating is actually for reset password. So remember, we actually implemented that one before. Okay, let's just go ahead and copy it here. So reset password. All right, and that will then actually take the token as a parameter. Okay, so let's just put any random token in here for now. So it doesn't matter at all. We just save it here as a reset password. Okay, and also it's not get, it's also not post, but it's patch, because the result of this will be the modification of the password property in the user document. And so patch is the best one actually. Okay, so let's quickly change our route implementation for this. So it's here in user routes. So it's not post, it's patch. And we also want to specify a parameter. So remember how we do that? So it's just like down here. So another slash, then colon, and then the name of the parameter, which is going to be token. Okay, and let's build this now, starting with the protocol. So HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, and we're basically going to get that data from our request. So that's stored on request.protocol, then colon // and then the host. Okay, so we're basically preparing this one here to work both in development and production. So request.get and then host. All right, so this is how we get the host, and then /API/version1. And I guess it's not ideal to define it here hard-coded like this, but again, this is something that we're going to fix a bit later, okay? And I see that this is actually not correct. These curly braces should be there. So now users reset password, and then yet another slash, and finally the token. Okay, so reset token. All right, and as we discussed before in the last lecture, here we're actually going to send the plain original reset token and not the encrypted one. All right, we will then in the next step compare the original token with the encrypted one. So again, just as we discussed in the last video. Give it a save here now, and so that is our reset URL. And now based on this URL, let's quickly create the message here as well. So forgot your password, submit a patch request with your new password, and password confirm, of course, to the reset URL that we just created. Okay, so basically giving the user some instructions here. Then on a new line, we also say, if you didn't, forget your password, please ignore this email. So that's kind of a common message. And again, I'm sure you've seen it in some way or another. All right. So let's now finally send the email. And remember that send email is an asynchronous function. And so therefore we need to await it here. Okay, because of course it's going to return a promise. And remember now that this send email function here takes an object with some options. So the email is user.email, right? Or we could also say rec.body.email. So that's exactly the same actually, right? Then the subject that we want to say is your password reset token. And let's say right away that it's only valid for 10 minutes so that the user knows that he has to hurry. Okay, and then finally the message as well. Okay, so we await that, and then after that, let's also send, of course, some response. Okay, so there always needs to be a response, otherwise, as you already know, the request response cycle will never finish. So we simply send a 200 code, and then a nicely formatted message with a status of success, and then just a quick message saying token sent to email. All right, and of course we cannot send the reset token right here via JSON, right? Because then everyone could just reset anyone's password and take over any account that they wanted. And so that's the whole reason why we send it to an email address, because we assume that the email is a safe place that only the user has access to. All right. Whew, so this video again is running quite long, but we're still not done. We're almost done, but not entirely, because there might happen an error using this send email. Okay, and so in that case, we of course want to send an error message to the client. But in this case, we actually need to do more than simply send an error message. We need to basically set back the password reset token and the password reset expired that we defined. Okay, and so right now it's not enough to simply catch the error and then send it down to our global error handling middleware. But instead, we need to simply add a try catch block right here. So again, because we actually want to do more than simply send an error down to the client. So we try basically to do this, right? But in case there is an error, then of course this block here is executed. All right. So what do we want to do in that case? Well, we want to basically, as I said, reset both the token and the expires property. Okay, so password reset token and set it to undefined. All right, and the same for password reset expires. Okay, and then of course, just like before, this only modifies the data but doesn't really save it. And so let's go ahead, grab this one. And so to basically save the data in this case. Okay, and then just to finish, we of course then return with an error to the next middleware. So new app error. There was an error sending the email. Try again later. And in this case, the error code can actually be 500. So this is really then like an error that's happened on the server. And so it has to be a 5 code, and 500 is just like the standard one. All right. So let's now go ahead and try this out again. All right. So this is quite a long one again, but well, we have to do it, right? So forgot password with this email. Let's check it out. So this might now take a long time because of sending the email, but actually it worked now. Took like 5 seconds, but we see token sent to email. And so as we know, since we used Mailtrap, it actually didn't send this email to hello@jonas.io, but instead that email should be now trapped inside of Mailtrap. And indeed, here on the left side, it now showed up. All right. So that is the email that we specified. And here we get our nice URL. Okay, so the one that we created with the protocol, the host, and then also with the token. So let's just take a look if this really is our plain token. So ending in 88DF. And indeed, we have reset token here, 88DF. And now in the database, we should have the token ending in 1111. So let's confirm that here in Compass, give it a reload, and indeed, here we go. Okay, and so again, this here is in 10 minutes from now. Great, so we finished that part. Next up, in the next video, we will then actually reset the password, based, of course, on the new password that the user sends with the reset password request. So see you there.